Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of Stockton United. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel, and I'm here with your host with the most, Lance McHan.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Yes, you can with Lance McHan.
Can, baby.
Hey, I'm going to change the intro. I'm going to be like, welcome back, everybody, to Stockton United. Yes, you can with Lance McHan. Something like that. I'm going to be like, here's your host, the yes, you can, Lance McHan.
Yes, we can. Lance, we can. Who knows?
So catchy, man. I love it. All right. Well, listen, we're talking serious stuff here today, which I love. I think I'm sick of surfacey conversations in marketing and just in general. Small talk is so boring to me. And this is not boring. Today's topic is not small talk. I would expect Lance, just to like soften the blow here, I would expect that there will be people with animate opinions about this conversation today. And so we are just exploring this conversation. Lance nor I proclaim to have all the answers, right?
Right. We don't have the answers. We're just exploring, and we'd like to invite you into the conversation.
Yeah.
So
I think that's right. I think when you talk about Stockton United, that it implies that all of Stockton starts to have the conversation. Like, we have to unite around a conversation. We may not have the answers yet, but we do have to engage.
Yes,
right?
A friend of mine used it, courageous conversations. Mm-hmm. And so we're working together to maybe foster those courageous conversations.
Absolutely.
And see if we could solve some of the issues that we're having locally.
I think that's what leaders do, is foster conversations. Leaders don't always have the answers, but they're willing to take the risk to start the conversation. And I think that's what we're doing here, is we're starting a conversation. So
well, I hope so. Hopefully together, as we unite, we can solve this issue of homelessness, which is a topic of the conversation today.
Yep. Because
we all drive around our city and see little tents popped up here and there, and garbage and trash. It's just, it's heartbreaking in one sense, on one side, because most people have a heart, but on the other side, you're like, you're trashing my city.
Right.
So where do you fit all that together? Where do you focus that heartbreak and anger into something useful?
That's a good question, because I feel like in my city, we have panhandlers, people on the side of the road, off the off ramps, and I actually just drive past them, and I have this little chip on my shoulder when I drive past them. Which is weird, because I have a big heart. In college, I paid for some homeless dude's hotel room it was a cheap hotel, but
your credit card was on the line.
I put it on my credit card. Dude, I was a college student. I didn't have a job. I was like, but I had a huge heart for this guy, and I heard his story, and I felt like it was a legit story. And after a week, and I went into debt to put a roof over this guy's head for a week, I was like, what good did that do? And did he even change? Because now he's back in the same situation he was before he had a hotel room.
Right. So if he took that time to put in some applications, take a shower, shave, clean up, freshen up, and go try to get a job at McDonald's or someplace local, that could have been the catalyst to change his life. You know, sometimes we never know when we touch somebody's life.
Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? Maybe that happened. But I do feel like, though, that we should probably segment this conversation into different groups of people, right? Because there are some people who want to change. I mean, this is probably the first distinction. Some people who want to change and not be homeless, and some people who just feel like being homeless is easier, or I have no idea why somebody would want to be homeless. But I do believe that there are those two distinctions, right?
Right. And I spoke to a gentleman one time. He's like, I'm not homeless. I just live outside. How do you change that mindset? How do you open up and say, there's something more here for you? And he was just like, I get my check and I do what I want. I travel, do whatever. I'm like, okay.
I mean, that's cool if that's his, but then if it comes down to like trashing the city, then that's not, if he's a dude that just wants to live outside, but trashes the city or makes the city not cool, right? Doesn't appreciate the city, then that's not good. I don't know if that's what that guy's story was, but
no, I don't remember either. Then right now there's a gentleman who he balances the most obscure things on his head. He had a traffic cone on his head the other day, a bicycle, a bowling ball, and he earns his money by performing.
Sure. Street performing, yeah, okay.
And so I could respect that. I'm willing to help somebody who's trying to work for it or some exchange of value. I used to give people money all the time, but now I buy them food. If I'm at a place and I'm getting something to eat, I'll buy them a sandwich. I'm not going to give you cash any longer. It's more satisfying to me personally to give you a hot plate of food, some hamburger, some tacos from the local street taco spot, whatever it is. Or if you're washing windows, I'd rather give that guy money than the guy with his hand out.
Question for you. So we had talked before we hit record, we were talking about potentially having some type of a tent city or even like tiny houses in a specific plot of land where people could have housing. Like, I think that it's cool to have resources like that if people want to actually respect the situation, respect it.
I think if we had a tent city, there's approximately 1,500. They just did a homeless count, so the numbers aren't in yet. But let's say there's 1,500 people. If outreach has to go to different places to try to help these people versus how many can you help in a day if you're in the car half the time. Right. But if everybody was in location, you had sanitation, outreach, and then not only that, but then the community could come together and help the people who we can help. We can't help everybody, not because maybe because of mental capacity, but there was a gentleman, he would go around and give haircuts to the homeless. So the gal who cuts my hair, they do it every year for the kids. And so giving them a hand up so they can go look presentable, to go get a job and start new. Sometimes people are just a victim of circumstance. Right. You know, got sick and lost their house.
I think that goes back to like the different groups of people. Like some people just had tough circumstances. They don't want to be homeless. They'd like a different situation. They do need a hand up and opportunity, and they're willing to work for it. Right. And I think maybe I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, I could see let's start with the path of least resistance, where we create some solutions for those that actually don't want to be homeless, so that because they would respect that opportunity more than somebody else. Right.
Like, those, I can't think of the name, the hippie camps, where everybody has to pitch in. Sure. Everybody has to do something. Towards the goal. I mean, if you had a tent city, you could say, okay, you guys are picking up the trash. You guys are making sure that the dishes, they could all do stuff for each other. Right. I don't know. I don't have the answer, but maybe people could chime in and together we could come up with something functional for the city.
I think some of those things, like, I think just in human nature, it's easier when the expectation's set up front. So if a tent city is created, or tiny houses or whatever's created, like some type of a co-op community, but you're the developer, let's say, the community, and you say, well, here's who this is for. Like, here are the quote unquote rules, that you're agreeing to when you step in, right?
Right. You have to have expectations. Yeah. Otherwise people inherently will take advantage. We were talking before the show, Panera, they had a pay what you want restaurant. It wasn't sustainable. People were going in and taking advantage. And not only that, but organizations would send, like, let's say an organization for homeless outreach, they would say, hey, go to Panera, you could eat for free. So it didn't work out because they weren't even breaking even.
Right. Yeah. Right. It just, when you were saying that, because it just made me think of, there's something really, maybe there's an answer in here somewhere too. There's something really cool about, for example, franchise law, right? Like from a housing standpoint, if what I have to say, like, there are certain limitations you have with housing. Like, I can't discriminate against you, right? In housing. So my expectations have to be appropriate to the housing laws. However, if the conversation were not a housing conversation, but a business conversation, right? Where there is, for franchises, for example, have legal responsibilities. There's a binding agreement contractually that franchisees have to behave or perform certain ways according to the franchise model.
I get what you're saying.
And if you don't do that, I can take your franchise back from you. So there's you're invested to make money and follow my rules. I've invested to help you. There's a win-win. So what if the housing was attached to, I don't know, micro businesses or some, I'm not even sure.
Well, so a hotel, there is no tenancy there. There is no residency there.
Okay. Yeah.
Not a tenant. So it would have to be structured, because if a hotel could call the cops and have you out in 15 or however long it takes for the cops to show up, that's when you're out. So if we could structure it in a fashion like that, where you're always at risk of being kicked out if you don't follow the rules. But then there comes you have to have a good manager, a good leader who's not going to basically be picking on somebody just because they don't like them,
Right.
But
that's a great idea.
I
love that though.
I was talking with the gal, they would be residents. They would not be tenants. I think that was where it was structured. And I think that could be a way to do it. And some of these people may have, warrant. So that, they would be in their best interest not to cause trouble. But in the same sense, those people who do have those warrants, maybe coming into this tent city, we could help them get rid of that. So maybe they're just running from the law. Maybe they just need that cleaned up so they can go back to a normal life. Right. So there's all these little minutiae and little micro cosms that probably create the homeless issue. Right. And some are probably mentally ill.
Yeah. Well, I do like the idea. I mean, I love the big conversation of like, how do we end homelessness? But I also like the specific solution oriented conversation around like, what's the path of least resistance to at least some change? You may not be able to help people with mental disabilities the same way you could help people who are mentally functional, right? Just like you can help people who want to hand up, but you can't really help people who don't want to be helped. So I like the idea of like, let's just pick somewhere to start, and let's go start with where we can make a difference and see how it.
Well, where do we start? It's like, I would say a tent city, like get a couple acres.
Yeah.
And try to put people there, and we could get portables or whatever, those trailers where city staff could come in for the day, where there's power or generators or something, and they could go in and see people. Hey, what are your needs? What are your specific needs?
Right.
Do you need medication? What do you need? And just really, really, really try to help instead of sweep them under the rug and push them aside.
You know what else about that too I like is if you used it as like a not an experiment, but you used it to test some of your ideas. So you're like, okay, well, rather than go out and building brick and mortar stuff first, let's start with tent city because the overhead is less expensive, but let's still use what we were thinking about using for like the rules of engagement or the expectations we have for residents of tent city. Let's test that out, see how people play in tent city before we go build, a hotel with residents.
A $5 million structure to house people.
Right. And that way you can sort of find your minimum viable product. You can figure out like, what is the thing that does this piece work? Okay, we can test that in tent city. Then you can test the next thing in tent city. And then you can kind of start to build your model from there.
I would think, I don't know how many people are addicts out there, but I would assume quite a bit. Yeah. So we could have counselors come out there like, hey, do you want to go to a program? If you want to do a 30 or 45 or 60-day program, boom, you're off the streets. You have a place to live for the next few days, 30, 60 days where you get clean.
Right.
So that all those little things, because I would imagine you get tired of being out there in the cold and the wet and the hot.
Right.
Not showering, shaving.
Yeah.
I've gone into Starbucks and seen people taking showers in there, like in the sink. I've walked, there's water everywhere.
Right.
How do you, but giving them a little place of dignity where they could actually take a shower and clean up. And
I think part of it too, speaking of dignity and is the not just the solution to the housing, but then the development of the mind. Like I think for people to not repeat old patterns, right? There's got to be instruction. There's got to be there's got to be a new paradigm that they can step into. And if there's no there's no person or initiative that's opening the mind to the new paradigm, then what they're left with is a house and old patterns, right?
Right. So maybe in the tent city, you have to attend so many hours of AA meetings or NA meetings or something. But I'm sure there's people in our community who run these types of meetings who would be more than happy to come out and sit and talk to people about recovery and what it takes and the mindset. And you got to, it may mean getting rid of everything you own and starting new into a treatment program.
Right.
That's scary. And the biggest issue is a lot of these homeless people, they have dogs, and that's their only family they have. So how do you say, okay, you're going to go into recovery, but you can't take your dog? Then they're like, no, I'm good. I'd rather be homeless.
Right. Yeah. Right. Because it's their family.
It's their family.
I get that big time. Well, I think that's how we start to look at some of the pieces of the solution. Like there's got to be some, what's that?
A lot of moving parts in this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, totally. And I think it's just finding what are some of the key ones. It'd be cool to have a campus, like you talk about tent city, but like if you think about college where you've got different classes, different types of study. So maybe it's NA or AA, and then you've got like some other thing that's more about personal development, not just addiction, but personal development. And
I love that. That is amazing. That didn't even come to my mind, but I get what you're saying. Like it's more than just recovery. It's what are you going to do after recovery?
Yeah. It's creating vision, right? What's the saying? Like where there's no vision, the people perish, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, where there's vision, people flourish. They go, dude, I just hadn't seen I could have a life that looked like this until I encountered somebody else who gave me a different view, right? Like
absolutely, and that's one thing, and I think I kind of probably got it from you, or part of it is you never know when somebody's going to change your life or you're going to change their life, but more importantly, you never know when they're going to change yours. So you never know when you're going to meet somebody and they're going to touch you in a way that you're like, oh, I never thought I could be that, or I could be more than what I am today.
Right.
And so that's the power of this, because we could touch so many people in one swoop instead of letting them just suffer out there.
What do you think about like if you did a tent city and you had it be there was some scarcity to it? It's not a tent city for 1,500 people. It's a scarcity for 20. Yeah. It's a tent city for 20 or tent city for 40, where you've got enough people for collaboration, shared workload, community, but not so many people that it's chaotic or hard to manage. And it whenever there's scarcity, people kind of, there's a line to get in.
Yeah.
And
that's the incentive to go down the line instead of veering off, sidetracked.
Right.
There would have to be some scarcity.
Right. I like that.
Which is it sucks in some way.
Yeah.
But you can't have light without darkness. You can't have one without the other. You can't have good without evil. You would want to help as many people as you can. However, with that scarcity, people are grateful for that opportunity to be in there and have the resources. And so a gentleman who I was speaking with, he said we should create these little tiny houses, a little subdivision or community where you have like 15 or 20 little tiny houses in this community. And I'm like, well, how does that work? Who foots the bill for that?
Right.
And his idea, and we're going to continue this conversation because we're going to try to have those courageous conversations. And I'm like, how do you spend all your time and effort and not get rewarded monetarily for your time?
Right.
I don't think if you built a 2-year project or a 1.5-year project that you got paid $100,000,
right?
It sounds like a lot, but let's say you make $45,000 a year at your regular job, and now you're going to go do this. You have to be compensated in some way.
Right. Yeah. It's not, we talked about this before. It's not sustainable. Just like Panera, like you keep, it's great to give until you go out of business because you can't keep giving.
Right.
Yeah.
I always say you have to do well for yourself in order to do good for others. You can't, it's like the old saying, if somebody's drowning, when do you save them?
Right.
You got to save yourself first.
Right.
And what do?
Yeah.
It's the conflict of human nature.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer, but I'm willing to have those tough conversations around it and see how we could spearhead this together as a community.
Yeah. I think that's what there is to do. Nobody has the answer. Otherwise it'd be solved by now. Right. Like,
well, here's the big thing. Who wants to solve the homeless issue? Because if you solve it, then other cities around your city will be like, okay, Stockton has the answer. Go to Stockton. They'll help you. So we have this huge influx of homeless people. Who really wants to solve the problem? That's the chicken before the egg conversation.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a deep point, because but the flip side of that is if Stockton has the answer or a solution, right? But the reputation of that solution precedes it, meaning people in other cities hear what has to happen, the criteria for you to get into that solution. There's expectations. You don't just go and get a handout.
Well, it's alleged that other cities around the area bus people here. There's people from out of state shipping people one-way bus tickets to Stockton.
Why?
So,
what does Stockton have right now that's having them do that?
Jobs, allegedly, but we don't have any jobs. Like, Stockton is like the bedroom for the Bay Area.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody commutes 3 hours
right
east to the or west to the Bay Area.
Right.
So it's crazy. And I'm like, and you talk to people, sheriffs and city officials, and like, yeah, it happens. And
wow.
So
wow, how
do you deal with that? Can you file a lawsuit against that city for shipping somebody to you? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, that doesn't seem like I suppose people could get buried in lawyer stuff, right? But to lawyer up that way doesn't seem very productive. Like, no. I think that's why I like this conversation, because we're trying to start a conversation about solutions, not building walls to Stockton, right? Let's build a wall around Stockton. They can't get into Stockton.
No more tacos for you.
That's right.
Yeah, but maybe that would be a model for other places, other cities, adjoining cities, to take that model and start implementing it there.
Right.
So that would be the hope,
right,
of starting something like this. But
yeah, it's
kind of scary.
Yeah. Well, it is, man. I mean, especially when you're addressing, I mean, listen, the bigger the impact the work has, the scarier it can be, because it's a harder problem to solve. People haven't solved it yet. It's also like you put yourself up for a lot of scrutinization. Like, people can look at you and be like, your way's stupid, my way's better, or you're trying to solve a problem that's not solvable, you're stupid. Right?
Yeah. I've been called many names.
Yeah.
Stupid many times. But, it's worth the conversation.
That's right. Well, and that's all we're doing in this episode is we're bringing up the conversation. And so here's what I would say, like, we can wrap here, because I feel like we've had some really good
bullet
pockets.
Points.
Yeah. Bullet points in this conversation, where I feel like those that are interested, those that listen to this, that are interested in this conversation, this would be a really cool town hall or a really cool coffee appointment where, like, people could actually sit down with you and or each other and start to talk about, like, well, what is the minimum viable product? What would be a part of this model? And just talk about, don't talk from a place of having the answer, but talk from a place of what could work. Could this work? And just start to see what comes out of it.
And that's coming. I'm meeting a gentleman tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. We're trying to formulate a roadmap of how to have this conversation. And hopefully we can get 200 people to show up and have those conversations.
That's amazing. I love that. Well, this is so cool, Lance. I would say I love that. Yeah, in the backstory here, you're a real estate agent, because I feel like, talking about a homeless issue while what you do is sell homes is
kind of ironic.
Ironic, right? But I love that. I think that's amazing. And I just feel like this is the future of marketing, is where business people care about the communities they live in. And I feel like It's not about selling a house. It's not about, listen guys, it's not about Lance selling a house. This is a bigger conversation. And I appreciate that you're bringing this out, Lance, into the community so we can talk about it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the feedback, and looking forward to meeting some of the people and having those conversations.
Right? Yeah, for sure. Well, if people want to reach out to you and talk to you about their ideas about homelessness and, or give you suggestions or be a part of conversation, like, or maybe they want to buy and sell a house. Just that straightforward, right?
Right.
One way or the other. One thing, like if you guys want to hang out with Lance, where can they go, Lance?
Just go to my webpage, lancemchan.com. My phone number's there, contact form's there. If you just want to shoot an email, just reach out or text me. I respond pretty quick. I try to respond as fast as I can. I can't always, because sometimes I may be doing an inspection or dealing with my kids or some other life issue.
Right.
But lancemchan.com, click, call me. I'm available.
Your phone number's on your website, right?
It is.
Perfect.
But I'll give it to everybody in case they don't have it. It's 209-986-9292. Remember, yes, you can. Yes, we can.
Yes, you can. And homelessness is Lance. All right. Lance, good stuff today, man. Thank you for your wisdom, your insights, and I look forward to our next episode.
All right, bud. Have a good one. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.